Just before we were supposed to attend a couples therapy session to save our marriage, my husband revealed that he doesn't see a future with me and wants to be with someone he's been seeing in secret. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, running a comb through my hair and trying to ignore the pit in my stomach. Today was supposed to be the day. After months of arguing, weeks of emotional distance, and countless nights spent lying awake in bed, my husband and I had finally agreed to attend a couples therapy session. This was our last shot. We'd been drifting apart for so long, but I still believed that love, patience, and commitment could pull us through. But as I glanced at my reflection, something felt off. A nagging, gut-wrenching feeling deep in my chest told me that no amount of therapy could fix the cracks that had formed between us. When Ben had come home late last night, his eyes distant and tired, I'd known something was wrong. He hadn't kissed me, hadn't held me like he used to. Instead, he'd sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. I had tried to push it aside, tried to believe that the therapy would work, that we could finally break through the wall of silence between us. But as I finished getting ready, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to fall apart. "Are you ready?" Ben's voice broke through my thoughts as he appeared in the doorway, his face unreadable. He was dressed in his usual button-up shirt, looking sharp, but there was an icy edge to his demeanor that made my heart race. I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Are you?" He didn't respond immediately, just looked at me, his eyes darting over my face like he was trying to read something, but it seemed like he couldn't. "Ben?" I asked, my voice hesitant. "Are you okay?" For a moment, I thought he might tell me everything was fine, that today would be different, that we were going to finally fix what had been broken between us. But instead, he shifted uncomfortably, running his hand through his hair. His eyes darted to the floor before he finally spoke. "I think we need to talk before we go to the session," he said quietly, almost too quietly. My heart skipped a beat. A part of me feared what he was about to say, but I ignored that voice, trying to focus on the hope that therapy could heal us. "What's wrong?" "We don't have time for a long talk. The session starts in 30 minutes. "I know," Ben replied, his voice low and tight, "but I think it's better if we have this conversation now." I felt a chill run down my spine. The tone of his voice was too serious, too final. My stomach churned, and I took a step toward him. "Ben, you're scaring me." "What's going on?" He sighed, his eyes meeting mine, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw something in them, regret, maybe, or pain. But then it was gone, replaced by something colder. "I don't think I can do this anymore," he said, the words falling out of his mouth like a confession. I froze. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, the words not registering. What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, looking away from me for a moment, like he couldn't bear to meet my gaze. When he finally spoke again, his voice was steady, but the weight of what he was saying hit me like a punch to the gut. "I don't see a future with you, Ava," he said, his voice flat. "I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I think it's over. I don't want to try to fix something that's broken beyond repair." I blinked, trying to make sense of his words. "What are you talking about?" "We've been through tough times, but we were going to work this out. We were going to go to therapy together. We promised we would try." He shook his head, his expression unreadable. "I know what we promised, but I've been seeing someone else. I've been seeing her for a few months now, Anne. I think I'm in love with her." The air around me seemed to stop. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt the world spin beneath my feet. "What? No. No, you're lying. This isn't happening." His eyes darkened with guilt, and he exhaled a long breath. "I'm not lying. I'm sorry, Ava, but it's the truth. I've been with her, and it's something I can't ignore anymore. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when I don't feel that way anymore." I took a step back, my hands trembling at my sides. "You've been seeing someone else?" My voice cracked, the words feeling foreign coming out of my mouth. How long? How could you do this to me, Ben? Ava, I never meant for it to happen, he said, his voice softening, but the damage had already been done. She's been there for me when we were struggling. I wasn't getting what I needed from you, and I didn't know how to tell you. I know I should have been honest, but I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me? I repeated, incredulous. And yet here we are, standing in the ruins of everything we've built. You've been lying to me, cheating on me, and you didn't think that would hurt me? Ben's face contorted with guilt, but it wasn't enough. I never wanted to hurt you, he repeated, like saying it again would make it true. But the truth is, I don't know how to fix this anymore. I don't think I can. I shook my head, my chest tight with emotion. So that's it? Just like that? You're done with me? He took a step toward me, but I held my hand out, stopping him. No, Ben. Don't. I can't hear this anymore. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I thought you were the man I married, the one who would fight for us. And now you're telling me you've been with someone else and you don't even see a future with me? His silence was the most damning part. He couldn't even look me in the eyes anymore. I'm sorry, Ava, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I stood there, paralyzed by the devastation in front of me. All the years, all the love, the memories we had built, had it all been a lie? Was I just some placeholder until the real woman came along? I felt a burning anger rise in my chest, mixed with a deep, soul-crushing sadness. I've been here, Ben, I said, my voice shaking. I've been here every damn day, trying to make this work. And you just replaced me? His face twisted in pain, but he didn't try to apologize again. He knew it was too late for that. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat more painful than the last. I stood frozen, struggling to process the weight of what he had just confessed. All those years, all those sacrifices, all the memories I had cherished, they suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Ben. My voice barely rose above a whisper, and I couldn't even recognize the tremor in it. How could you? How could you do this to me? To us? Ben's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering to the floor, unable to meet mine. He took a hesitant step toward me, but I immediately took a step back, holding my hands up in a defensive gesture. I never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice strained, as though he was trying to make the words sound like something that could undo the damage. I swear to God, Ava, I never planned for any of this to happen. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. You didn't plan for it, but you still did it. You still chose her over me. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. You made a choice every single time you saw her, every single time you hid it from me. You chose to lie, Ben. Over and over again. He flinched at the accusation, but there was nothing he could say to take it back. Was she better than me? I asked, suddenly desperate for an answer I wasn't sure I even wanted. Was she everything I wasn't? Was she what you needed all this time? Ben winced, his face crumpling as though he were about to say something, but he just shook his head. It's not about that, he murmured. It's not about comparing you two. It's about me. I've been lost, Ava. I've been confused for so long, and I didn't know how to come back. I didn't know how to tell you that I couldn't give you what you needed anymore. The words cut deeper than anything. So this is my fault? I snapped, feeling a fire of anger burning in my chest. You couldn't communicate with me, so you found someone else to fill that void? Is that what you're saying? Ben's face paled, and his shoulders slumped. He looked like he might cry, but I wasn't sure I could care anymore. The image of him with her, of him lying to me for months while we went through the motions, while we acted like everything was fine, it shattered something in me. I'm not blaming you, Ava, he whispered, stepping toward me again, but I couldn't move. I just don't think I can keep pretending that we can fix this. Then why the hell did we go to therapy? I shouted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Why the hell did you make me believe we could save this marriage if you were already so far gone? He opened his mouth to respond but stopped, as though the words were caught in his throat. I wanted it to work, too, he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. But I don't think it can anymore. I don't see a way forward. Not with you. Not with her. I don't know what I want, Ava. And I hate that I've hurt you so much in the process. Of course you hate it, I spat, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. You don't want to feel bad for your choices, do you, Ben? You don't want to feel guilty. You've been living a double life, lying to me, and now you're standing here acting like it's all some tragic misunderstanding. Well, it's not. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a betrayal. He took a step back, as though my words had slapped him. I know. I know it's a betrayal. And I hate myself for it. Do you? I asked, my voice rising with fury. Do you really hate yourself, or are you just mad that I'm finally seeing through your bullshit? Ben opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. Instead, he stood there, his head lowered, looking utterly defeated. It was the first time I had seen him like this in a long time, but it wasn't enough. It didn't change anything. How long, Ben? I asked, my voice breaking now. How long have you been seeing her? How long have you been lying to me? He flinched at the question, his face softening with regret. A few months, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt you, Ava. I didn't want to lose you. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. But I knew, deep down, that I was already losing you. That I couldn't keep pretending. Not with her, not with anyone. I let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow. A few months? A few months, Ben, and you've already decided everything? You're choosing her, aren't you? You're choosing to throw away everything we built, everything we were, for something new. Something easier, I guess? He nodded, the guilt on his face almost suffocating. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to make this harder than it already is. But I've made my choice. I stared at him for a long moment, disbelief still flooding my chest. I had no words left. The realization that Ben, the man I had built my life with, had already made his choice, had already made her his future, was like a crushing weight that I could barely breathe under. You've been seeing her behind my back, I said softly, my voice cracking. And now, you're telling me I don't even have a chance. You're telling me you don't see a future with me. He nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. I'm so sorry, Ava. I never wanted to hurt you. But I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep living this lie. The tears I had been holding back finally fell. I couldn't stop them, even if I wanted to. Then go, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Go to her. You've already chosen. I don't want to be the second option. Not anymore. Ben's face crumpled, and for a moment, he looked as though he wanted to reach out to me. But I didn't want him to. Not anymore. Goodbye, Ben, I said quietly, wiping my tears, the finality of it all settling in. Goodbye. I turned away from him and walked toward the door, my legs feeling like lead as I forced myself to leave. I wasn't sure where I was going, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was finally leaving him behind. Leaving the man who had once been my everything, and facing the future alone, but stronger than I ever imagined.